Walk into any OXO in Mexico City and grab a slim silver can. You just paid around 40 pesos for water, sugar, caffeine, and a feeling. Here's exactly how a company built billions selling that feeling, not the drink. Red Bull owns almost no factories. It doesn't brew its own product. It barely touches the liquid inside the can. And yet, it is one of the most valuable beverage brands on earth. To understand why, you have to forget the drink entirely. The story doesn't start in Austria. It starts in Thailand in the 1970s in a humble pharmaceutical company selling a sweet tonic to exhausted truck drivers and factory workers fighting to stay awake on long night shifts. That tonic was called Krating Dang. Translated, it means Red Bull. It was cheap, syrupy, and uncarbonated, sold to working men who needed an edge. Nobody imagined it as a global lifestyle. It was medicine for fatigue. Then, in 1982, an Austrian salesman named Dietrich Mateschitz, traveling for a toothpaste company, drank one in a Bangkok hotel. It cured his jet lag, and he saw something the inventor never did, not a ton, but an idea. Mateschitz partnered with the Thai owner. Each put in roughly $500,000. He took the formula, added carbonation, slimmed the can, raised the price, and aimed it at a market nobody else was selling to. The young, the restless, the night. Here is the first secret. Red Bull never built a beverage company. It built a marketing company that happens to own a recipe. The actual production was outsourced from day one to a partner who could make cans by the billion. That partner is an Austrian firm called Rausch. They fill, seal, and ship the cans. Red Bull supplies the brand and the strategy. It is asset-light by design. Low factories, low risk, maximum focus on the only thing that matters to them. And what matters is attention. From the start, Mateschitz spent enormous sums not on better flavor, but on presence. The product had to appear wherever energy, danger, and youth collided. The drink was the excuse, the vibe was the asset. In Mexico, you feel this everywhere. At a desert rally, at a skate park in Guadalajara, at a DJ set in Tulum, the logo arrives before the can does. You associate it with adrenaline long before you ever taste it. This is the core trick. Most companies advertise a product. Red Bull manufactures the events, the athletes, and the moments, then sells you a drink as the souvenir. The marketing isn't supporting the product. The marketing is the product. Consider how a normal soda brand operates. It pays a TV channel to run its ad between someone else's show. Red Bull asked a sharper question. Why pay for the gap between the content when you could simply own the content? So they built Red Bull Media House, a full production company shooting films, photos, and live broadcasts. It generates footage of extreme feats, then licenses and sells that footage to real networks. The advertiser became the broadcaster. The masterpiece came in 2012. A skydiver named Felix Baumgartner rode a balloon to the edge of space, 24 miles up, and jumped. He broke the sound barrier with his own body, falling back to Earth. 8 million people watched it live, the largest live stream of its time. Every frame carried the logo. Imagine buying that much global attention with a normal ad campaign. It would cost a fortune. Red Bull created it, and then owned the rights. Now, the system reveals itself. The space jump wasn't a stunt to sell cans. The cans help fund spectacles that generate attention, and that attention becomes content, and that content sells more cans, a loop that feeds itself. Then they bought into the most expensive sport on the planet, Formula One. A top team can burn hundreds of millions a year. For most sponsors, that is a cost. For Red Bull, it became a rolling, global television advertisement they control. And they didn't just sponsor. They owned the team outright, then bought a second one. When their cars win championships, the logo crosses every finish line on Earth, broadcast to hundreds of millions, in a sport built for prime time. Think about what that does in Mexico. The Mexican Grand Prix fills its stands with over 100,000 fans. The cheers, the flags, the speed, all wrapped in a brand that, remember, technically sells a flavored caffeine drink. They applied the same logic to football, buying clubs in Austria, Germany, the United States, and Brazil, renaming them, dressing them in the colors. Real teams, real leagues, real fans, all now living inside the brand. Every athlete they fund, every cliff dive, Every race feeds one machine. The company doesn't measure success only in liters sold. It measures it in eyeballs captured, in hours of attention, in how deeply the feeling embeds in your memory.
And the economics are brutal in the best way. Because production is outsourced and the product is cheap to make, the margin on each can is wide. That margin is what funds the balloons, the cars, the films, the entire spectacle.
In a Mexican supermarket, the price tells the story. A can of cola might cost you 15 pesos. A Red Bull can run 40 or more. You aren't paying for triple the liquid. You're paying for the world they built around it.
And people pay it. Bull sells over 12 billion cans a year across more than 170 countries. That is roughly a can and a half for every human alive, every single year.
The competitors learned the lesson but rarely matched it. Many tried to out-advertise Red Bull. Few understood that Red Bull wasn't advertising at all. It was building a media empire and stapling a beverage to the front of it. There is a vulnerability in this model. A brand must constantly perform. Stop the events, stop the spectacle, and the feeling fades because there is little else holding the price up. The machine has to keep printing attention to survive. Critics raised real questions too, about health, about sugar and caffeine marketed to the young, about regulators in several countries debating limits. The feeling sells beautifully, but the substance inside still has to answer for itself. When Mateschitz died in 2022, he left a fortune built almost entirely on perception. He never invented the drink. He didn't manufacture it. He simply understood earlier than anyone that he was selling energy as an identity.
So the next time you reach into the OXSO cooler and pull out that silver can, remember what you are actually buying. Not the water, not the sugar, not the caffeine. You are buying a feeling a company spent decades teaching you to crave.
Red Bull never owned the factory. It never needed to. It owned something far more valuable. The moment your pulse quickens before you've even opened the can. That was always the product. The drink was just the receipt.